This one's gonna probably be long. I don't know exactly. I haven't decided yet. Also, this is gonna be slightly a continuation of an already prior had discussion slash observation, as seen in my Lazy Sunday talk for the defense of real women. If you haven't seen it, there will be. Oh, water's running in the bathroom, minute. These ghosts get on my nerves. There will be a link somewhere on the screen thing right there for you to go watch that if you haven't already watched that. And after I turn off that faucet in my bathroom, I will begin. You've caught me on an apropos time. The new schedule started today, so I have to be prepared for work soon. Don't worry, it won't take much of your time. All right, so you saw the thumbnail. Let's talk about it. I am not the only one who's noticed. I hope I'm not. There are people who will consistently make an argument, and this argument needs to die. This argument is false. It's a false dichotomy. Dichotomy? Dichotomy. And this false dichotomy is game. That's not even the right voice. Gamers are just fucking misogynistic dude bro chats. They can't learn. They're not adults. They're just piss babies. And so, we have to kick them dragging and screaming to being adults because gaming will finally grow up. This is an argument that repeats itself ad infinitum. Every month in some new form, if it's not in a new game release. And the reason this argument gets repeated is because, if you haven't been paying attention, gaming, and when I say gaming, in this argumentation that I'm making right now, I'm not defining it as some hobby that people do occasionally. I'm talking about the gaming industry, I'm talking about the gaming business, I'm talking about gaming and gamers, both as individuals and as a hobby identity and a consumer hobby culture, and all things that happen inside of said hobby, including the esports. This is an argument that gets repeated a lot. That gamers are behind the times, that they are immature, and that their games and the gaming itself needs to grow up and be adult. The problem with this is that this argumentation, when often made, is just neo-Puritanism covering itself up under veneers of pride and shaming to bully people into agreement. In reality, the original rant itself was descended directly about the idea of sexualization of women and men, and how the paradoxical nature of it is necessary to be understood in order to truly get that. So, rather than just a few short ones, we're going to deep dive. I'm going to walk you through the reasons why this shit doesn't fucking work. In case you need some kind of reference on screen in order to help you understand that, you're not going to find one here. Watch that video. You're educated, you know how to work. However, I will put the image on screen, because the thumbnail is actually important to understand the framing of where I'm coming from and why it even matters. That's not the one I'm looking for. So, gaming and growing up. How did this argumentation start? This argumentation started from a lot of things, to be honest, in reality. It is a argument descended directly from the idea that gaming as a hobby is inherently immature, And the only way to make it evolve and grow up, and make people evolve and grow up, is to force them by a hierarchy change into being better people. The problem with this is that this is obviously not how you make people learn things. You don't force them by doing things by the overhand of force. Because when the Untermensch is oppressed by the Ubermensch by design, the Untermensch will resist. So, who is the Untermensch in the situation of gaming as a culture, or as a business, or even as a consumer hobby? Right now, if you've been paying attention to who I've been talking about, it's those alpha beta males who are surrounding these women who try to direct the industry to go in said direction. And I do say women because it is something that is being feminist led. And considering that most of them are female and male feminists, it's not surprising. Which is what brings us to my image. I'll try to enlarge this so you can see. This image is a composite of a couple of things in a couple of games and a couple of other situations that get held up as a basis of showing the supposed bias and hatred and misogyny and the blah 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 of gamers. This is not an exhaustive list, by the way. There are probably 50 billion games I could have put in this thumbnail, and 50 other billion things I could have put in here to get my point across. But the point is very clear. When the accusation is slung, gamers need to grow up. It is usually done to try and shame them for how dare they not consume content. It doesn't matter if it's Validate. It doesn't matter if it's The Last of Us Part 2. It doesn't matter if it's the new game that's going to be starring right there, this individual. That's going to be starring the first ever, I'm pretty sure it's probably not the first ever trans character, but the first ever trans protagonist. Big gay relationships right here in video games like Dragon Age Inquisition, which is one of the better ones. Or the characterization of characters like Kratos, God of War 4. The picture is not fully complete because what you see, it literally is only part of the picture. It is only part of the narrative here being explained by that thumbnail on this video. And the reason why is because normally when you define your terms, you need to define your terms by also showing examples of what you're showing. The problem with gaming and this argument that it needs to grow up is that if I were to say the names of certain people who are actually responsible for that, for the industry being what it is now, which is the anathema of actual diversity and inclusion, you know, the neo-puritanical Sharia, virtual Sharia law that is being forced upon female characters, female directors, and female actresses to basically become the replacement of the nameless, faceless Space Marine, which is the super inclusive, nondescript female protagonist. If I were to name names like Anita Sarkeesian, Elsie Van Valkenburg / Louis Gwynn, Neil Druckmann, Jonathan McIntosh, I don't exactly blame him personally, but he still has to take responsibility for this. And B. Birch. If I start naming those names of those people, you'll look at a very large group of people saying, actually, no, they're not. Which I find bullshit, because Neil Druckmann directly cites Anita Sarkeesian as a responsibility and also as an encouragement for his writing. It's the same thing with Ed Boon and at the new NetherRealm Studios underneath the WB. The company who was responsible for the creation of the ESRB with the blood and the guts and the violence for Mortal Kombat is now cucking to the design, saying, yes, it's time, gaming needs to grow up. The problem there is that you're not growing gaming up. You're just making it much more sexist, much more misogynistic, much more racist, much more all of these things. Because the thing you need to understand is that if you're going to say that what you came from, which is the Wild West of ideas and imagination, is problematic, what you're heading towards is not the replacement. You're not making your social pet peeve issues any better. you're just making gaming worse. And the reason why is because you are hypocritical. You're hypocritical because you're making biases, and you're making choices based on said biases. Like trying to replace every single protagonist in a game with a female one. I mean, sure, it sells you money. Some of the people who are doing it because they know that if they don't do it, they'll be targeted for having not done it. But, again, like I said in the last video on this topic, in that Lazy Sunday video, what I said was very much true. You are not helping things by saying that these things that you want is realistic and everything else is unrealistic. Like, I could spin an argument poetic about The Last of Us 2 and about how Abby is not a realistic character, and it has nothing to do with her potentially supposedly being trans or not. She's not. The problem is that she looks unrealistic because you took the face of a female designer and you took the body of a bodybuilder and you took the voice of Laura Bailey and you smashed all three of those things together in an amalgamation, and you ended up with something that does not look realistic because it sparks Uncanny Valley. Not that gamers can't handle muscles, because you know that's a goddamn lie. Also a video on my channel. At the end of the day, the argument doesn't work because you have to actually define what you are done here. And that's what none of the people here do. They never define how they're right. They just say, I am right, and therefore, that means you hate women if you disagree with me. And that's just not how that works. Can't seem to find the picture that I'm looking for. Give me a second. So, to get into it, what is the problem when I bring this up? Because obviously, I'm saying this is a problem, but what realistically is the issue? What have they failed at doing? The thing that you failed at, like I mentioned last time, is that you have failed to make a cognizant separation and a cognizant clarification and acknowledgement that you can be progressive, but at the same time, still be smart. I'm going to show you a perfect example of what I mean right now. You ready for it? You ready? You ready to fucking fall in love, nerds? Check that shit out. That is a better rendering model of Abigail. Now, granted, this doesn't make the video game any better, but damn, that's a lot better to fucking look at, now ain't it? Yeah, of course, there are people who are going to scream, "Wee, you're sexualizing me!" But I have a question for you, alright? I want you to hold on to that anger you got right now. What if them Abby is sexualization? What do you call this? Did you need to sensationalize the interplay of sex and violence by having her introduced by hanging with a noose, bound behind her neck, exposing her abs in the most egregious way possible? The answer is no, you did not. And yet, if I was to reject your game with no other argument other than, well, I don't like the big muscle lady, you would say you would say I'm misogynist. You would say I am a gamer chud and I need to grow up. That is false. Because you see, the argument I just made here, right? The two images I showed you, they are the anathema of each other. Lol, you're a dude, bro, chud, and you need to grow up because gaming is leaving you behind. You're just a Neanderthal. You're just a neophyte. Is directly countered by, yes, and I can do this and this at the same time, and I can still make a good content even while having my dumbass shit. That is an anathema of your argumentation if you are such a person who makes this argument. And the reason it is an anathema is because you are not acknowledging that paradox I mentioned in the last video. To recap, is the paradox that if you are in defense of real men and real women, and you want to uplift the voices of real men and real women, you cannot try to attack people by shaming your supposed real men and real women in the same breath that you're trying to destroy and denigrate the image of supposed fake ones, which is to say, fictional characters. Because when you say, well, it's different because I'm an actual person and this woman doesn't exist, what you're saying is that every single woman that looks like the character is not a real woman or a real man. Every single time you say, but, well, you see, you might not hate this, but there are gamers that do hate this, is you not acknowledging the will of the individual. You're forcing them into a collective. And you're doing that because you want to attack them as a group and not for their actual opinions and statements. Because you don't ever listen to people's opinions and statements. You just attack them for no other reason than because, lol, you're a gamer. It's why your arguments always fail. It's why you're always shown to be hypocrites. It's why it takes everybody 2 seconds to think of a framework that proves you wrong. It's because you don't think. Most of you repeat each other's arguments because you hear somebody else say something that sounds cool, and then you're like, ooh, that's cool, I'm going to retweet that later. That's what you do. You don't ever sit down and think about what you're doing. It's why feminist theory is just theory. It's just dogma, or as the doctor would call it, woo. And this ideological woo, because it has no basis in actual peer-reviewed data, it is just what you feel everybody is. Because you feel, and because you think, for all that you can see on social media, as far as you care to look, is all people bashing things for things that you think are slights, both real and imagined. If you believe, like Nita did, that everything is misogynistic, everything is racist, and everything is sexist, and you need to point it all out, and you have to mock them by word and by name, if the people who you're trying to mock is William Billy Usher of One Angry Gamer, and your argument is all gamers are one angry gamer, then you have already failed to explain to me the reason why you're still goddamn pressed and upset. Right? If you believe that forcing a virtual Sharia on all female characters, Neil Druckmann, is going to help girls have better role models for characters and characterization. If you really believe that, if you believe that Cortana having boobs affects the young children developing, then might I ask you what in the fanciful fresh fuck you did in The Last of Us Part 2, where you took away the humanity and the agency of two female characters, and rather than teach women a lesson about the cycle of self-forgiveness, rebirth, and finding absolution in one's mistakes and pain and torture and torment, and showing that just because you have succumbed to hatred does not mean it is the end for you, why did you instead create a game that is the resolve of lol, revenge cycles are horrible, by having the story of Ellie become a fucking tragedy that is such a tragedy that it hits none of the story beats of an actual proper tragedy? In your attempt to write the modern day Shakespeare, you fucked up your Hamlet, dude. And you did so on purpose. You did it on purpose. You can't blame anybody for that. What about all those 80% sales drops overseas for your digital sales in the UK and every other region? What about all those sales where people are literally giving your game away if they buy 3 and get that one free? What about the people who are refusing to purchase the game? They literally can't give your shit away, dude. That's how we know you made a bad game. It doesn't matter how often and how long and how much you tap your foot and slap the desk saying, but I made money. No, that is not a mark of a success. That is a mark of a failure. In fact, that is the mark of immaturity. If you were mature about it, if you made a good game and you made what you wanted, and you did so with the intention of making something that would be beloved by all, not just beloved by your own words, Druckmann, by you, then you would be in a place where that would be what you did. That is not what you did. Instead, you made the same assumption that a lot of these people who are actually woke and not just doing performative woke scolding to the mob so they don't get canceled or kicked out of their job or beaten out of the industry or blacklisted or whatever. You would have done what your predecessor, Amy Hennig, did when she created the legacy of Kane. You would have done that. Not literally that. Please, never fucking touch Kane ever. But you would have done that. You would have sat there and you would have nursed your bouncing baby girl into what she wanted to be, and then when the curtains close, fair or foul, I have to accept what you made and say, okay, this was decent. This is okay. This was fine. Because your theory there, your presupposition, the axiomatic presupposition that you made on that keynote speech, Druckmann, is not a theory. It is a hypothesis. You did not or consult your peer review data and actually test whether you were right. This is the reason why the arguments don't work, by the way. When you go off on a theory that you made up in your head, because somebody like, say, Heather Antos doesn't like the fact that Joker is a film, so she retweets and quote tweets something that she saw on the internet on Facebook and then says, yo, yeah, I think this is great, I think this is good, and an actual minority tells them, actually, no, you're fucking crazy, what are you talking about? You cannot turn around and say, oh, well, you see, those minorities, they're the bad ones, and my minorities, the people who agreeing with me, they're the smart ones. Because at that point, you end up in a situation with Ghost of Tsushima, where you have check marks. Telling people, wow, as an Asian, I find it really weird that you guys keep deferring to Japan for the opinions of Asianness. Why aren't you deferring to me? And it's like, bitch, I don't make people defer to me to ask if they can eat a croissant. I don't take dashikis off the backs of performative idiots that want to go out and support the recent showing and rescreening of Black Panther. I don't do any of those things. So where in the fuck do you get off trying to tell people that you are the arbiter of what is and is not good and bad? But let's get to the nitty-gritty now, right? Be it resolved that you're going to stay pressed. What is the actual argument against gamers being mature? Because, again, if you consider what you came from, everything is sexualized equally, men and women are ogled equally, men and women can be divisive, if not always three-dimensional characters that have strengths, weaknesses, and flaws. If this is immature, you think what you're doing, covering up the female characters, but still ogling the men, not allowing women to be victims of violence of some kind of nature, but at the same time, hypocritically, then saying, oh, it's not okay for her to be sexualized like this, but it is okay for me to take this giant-ass boulder and crush Citrion's head with it. You know, dejudge the face of female characters, have them violated and beaten and corrupted and brutalized in all sorts of fashions. You know, just don't put a bikini on it. If you think that Tifa Lockhart, or Aerith, or Yuffie, or Jessie, or any other Final Fantasy babe, Tifa even, Pain, I don't think her name is Yuki, Riku. If you think those characters are somehow bad, if you think that is maturity, if you frame, let's go as far as the actual egregious thing, if you frame this as mature, might I see what the method was where you arrived at that? Because that's not mature. That is the opposite of mature. that is actually immature. Because mature adults were able to understand that some things are not always going to be pretty. You know? To say that beauty is never tarnished and that every single female character cannot be a victim of violence but is allowed to commit egregious acts of violence, that is you not addressing that paradoxical position you have. I would hope that in this never ending eternal conflict between the rest of the world and Reset Era, and also people who are in the industry that try to blacklist people when they don't agree with them, which basically is Reset Era. We're gonna make a video about Reset Era soon. Don't worry, I got presentations and notes. In this never-ending eternal conflict, where people like Anita Sarkeesian try to grift off of companies like CD Projekt Red for money, the way that she did off of Anthem and Dishonored 2 and all the other games that are now shelved because the idea of promoting and pushing for your pet peeve issues in video games is not interesting to people who want to buy them, and therefore studios will always shutter those games in studios because they have no interest in paying for a cash cow that bears no milk. That's a meme. Rather than them be interested in this cash cow that you're trying to sell them, that bears no milk and is infertile, they would rather go plow fertile soils. For most companies like Sony, they literally just got blasted. They just got ass blasted out of fucking water because of the amount of work that just went into something like PSO2, New Genesis. Granted, the console players got fucked over again because y'all fell for it once again. Thanks for playing for the open beta. Remember, no refunds. Oh, I hope it stays free to play. If we take truthful stock of the situation right now, just using Xbox and Sony, which is the same Microsoft and Sony, as examples against each other, which I've said at least 3 times now. If there was a console war, Sony lost it already. And the reason why Sony lost it was not because, they had a bad design for their console. That's not the reason why. They would have lost it for the reasons I just described earlier. In your progressive pursuit and trying to solve your sexism issues, you made video games worse. You censored what people wanted to play, whether it be the actual game or the art in the game. Consumers do not appreciate that, so they're not going to buy in large capacity. A lot of them are paying attention to how with things that are supposed to be for mature audiences, you're still trying to treat them like they're playing a fucking Japanese light novel. I mean, sure, you covered up with a very weird light beam, lady's ass, but I'm much more concerned with the idea of how hypocritical you're being, while you choose to protest to me that I am the backward savage. I mean, that's like, cool, the LDR, dude. I didn't ask. I didn't care. And if you are so obsessed with proving that gamers are all misogynistic dude bro chuds, and that we all think like Billy William Usher, you're going to have to do more than just say, well, what do you mean you're not? Because that's not an argument. This one feels like it's a bit more rambly, but that's okay. I want to hear from y'all on this one, to be honest. I want you to give me your opinion on what you think is real or not. You tell me what you think. Leave it in the comment section below. If you're in my Discord, leave it in the gaming channel. You tell me what you fucking think. You think I'm on some shit? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm out of it? Do you think I'm on the money? I mean, I could be wrong. I always accept the possibility that I could be wrong. But this is the reason why I made this video. It's because, in this pursuit of this never-ending tale of gamers being supposedly behind the times, it's never the gamers that are acting and sounding like they want to return to a period of time that has already gone by. Y'all have a word for that. You call it reactionary. So, hopefully, if you're done doing what you accuse everybody else of, and you stop trying to return to a time where you had so much control over video games you could just bully people into not making shit, which, by the way, is the time we're still living in. If that is not what you're doing, and you would like to express the reasons why you think you might have it the right way around, where you think the way to change the games is to basically put everybody behind a letterbox, leave your opinion in the comment section, and we will get into it. This might get an update, this might not. It depends on y'all's reaction. Regardless, have a good day, everyone. I love you equally, except for those of you who keep sending me porn. Bye-bye.